Where did you start? Where did
ha-
it all begin for you?
you see, this is or immediately you've asked me very, interesting and open-ended question, and I just want to subvert it by going, well, when I was in Miss World in 1983, I was. When did I get into music? So I don't know whether it's just an adolescent male thing, but there's a kind of I think there was a kind of semi-obsessive part of my nature that discovered music around about the age of 12. When you and again I think you have to put the context in because I am an old fucker. I'm 53, so we're talking like 1982, 83 kind of time.
Right, right.
And radio, there was one, two stations that played music.
Yeah.
So you were constantly bombarded with that. The channels of was nowhere. The channels of finding things was nowhere as dissipated as it is now.
Well, they are now. Yeah.
So there was always music. You always heard music. But then I think it was that as you're finding, pubescent identity, and really got into, I think probably because of the peer group, like heavy metal. So I was Black Sabbath, and AC/DC was the one for me. AC/DC still is the one,
Yeah.
and bought records. And and again became that slightly obsessive buy. You'd have to save up to buy an album,
Yeah.
and you'd look at the sleeve and you'd see who was the bass player and who was the engineer and da 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 da. And then it kind of just didn't become enough for me just to listen to it,
Right.
and I wanted to try and understand it, I guess, and just so I wanted a guitar. I got a terrible nylon strung guitar. I think it was Christmas of '84. With the intonation is based on the original organ that was put in Cologne Cathedral that was bombed repeatedly. And nothing on it was in tune. And just kind of obsessed over that. And then it was my 14th birthday. I think I got an electric.
Right.
Then that was it, and that was just this completely obsessive. Started buying Guitar Player. There was a Guitar Player magazine that had Angus on the front, so that was like a Bible. I've still got it from 1983. This
Wow. Wow.
magazine, and just got completely immersed in that, and I think it was and because of that, I kind of found an identity. I think you see a lot of younger people now who are struggling to kind of find their place in the world.
Definitely. Definitely.
And this was a savior for me because I had the identity of I was a guitar player. That's
Yeah.
what I wanted to be. I'm a guitar player. I want to be a guitar player. And that was kind of how I got into it. And then I was in about a year into getting a guitar, I was in a band. And then I had all those painful Saturday morning rehearsals where my mum would give me a lift to the room, and then you'd be there for 8 hours getting a migraine. Everything getting treblier and treblier as the day goes on because
Yeah.
you know your ears were getting tighter and tighter, but you didn't realize any of that shit. And you get the first gig and yeah, that was the thing for me.
Yeah.
The first gig I ever did was at my school with this band playing originals, and
Right.
the
That's amazing.
adrenaline.
Songs that you'd written as the band.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That's great.
And again, I was 15,
Wow.
and that was just the that derailed everything. The,
Yeah.
the feeling, the adrenaline, the emotion, the whole thing was just derailed everything. So I was doing okay at school, and then wasn't doing as okay, but kind of okay. And then my kind of okayness turned into not getting as many O levels as I should have got, and then that turned into a year of resits, and that was more gigs with this band, and you kind of I did the education thing up to a point as a way of well, it was more of a way that there wasn't the kind of roots to music as there is now. I know you
Yeah.
teach. We're talking
Yeah.
about it a little bit. You teach. There wasn't those kind of courses. There was
Yeah.
GIT in America. That was the
Right.
one. You just wanted to go to GIT, the Musicians Institute, or wherever it was, and there was nothing like that here. And so I ended up doing a biochemistry degree.
No
And
way.
yeah. And because I was kind of did all right at that. And then I fucked up the first year, redid the first year, did a couple of music modules because it then turned into this modular course. And that was an eye opener because at that point I started playing with Ezio and I'd been gigging quite a bit. I mean, one of the reasons why I fucked up my first year of doing a degree is that there were chemistry lectures on a Friday afternoon, and it was often the same time that I would be going to London to play at the Mean Fiddler, be 19th on the bill.
Wow.
You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
and so it was like I just remember having a discussion with my tutor going, this Friday I won't be able to make the practical, or next Friday,
Or the Friday
or the
after.
Friday, yeah. It was that kind of thing. And so, and then it just kind of fell in, it was just dumb enthusiasm.
Great. Yeah.
It made sense. It kind of made sense. And, if I'd have put as much effort into window cleaning, I'd probably be like Michelle Mone is to Bras right now. I'd have been embezzling millions of pounds from the government for my window cleaning COVID kit. Be on my luxury yacht, the Saucy Sue, or something. Then I decided to play guitar. So, a very long-winded answer to a very short question.
So in school? Is that where you met Ezio, or did
No,
you
he's
from somewhere else?
he's 10 years older than I am.
Right.
Old fucker. He's close. Like death. Death stalks me all the time, but occasionally pops around the corner to see him. He's got one of those Ring doorbells, and there's a man there in a black robe and a scythe going, coughing this morning. As opposed to Death just sitting next to me right now. I'm kind of looking at the Amazon catalog to see whether we can get an espresso maker. No, so at the time, I met him when I was 16 in that first band that I was at school with.
Right.
So there was I'm from Cambridge. He was from Peterborough, but he'd moved to Cambridge. And at the time, so again, this was about 86. There wasn't really a venue. There were little pubs, and there was the Corn Exchange was the big venue, and it got rebuilt and became a new thing around that kind of time. And there was the other place that then came up was a place called the Junction, which is spread out. Yeah. So you had lots of pubs, and then these two venues. So the Corn Exchange is a kind of mid-sized 2,000.
It's about 2,000 cap.
15 to 2,000. And the Junction at the time was just a room.
Right.
I think that took about 700 at the time. And so because it was the Corn Exchange was a council built venue, they had to put something back into the community. So they had this rock competition. And they used to have it at a place called the Guildhall, which was like an older building, but now it got moved to the Corn Exchange. This was the first year that the Corn Exchange had opened, revitalised, and it was just for bands doing original music.
Wow, right.
And there was something like, God, I mean, must have been about 50 or 60 bands that entered. So it was really
that's a big deal. That's a big deal.
All doing original music. And so there were like 7 heats, and it was massively attended. There were about 1,000 people for each heat, and in the final there was 1,500 people, which it's quite
that's a massive undertaking.
For original bands,
50 or 60 bands, each with original music.
So there'd be like seven or eight heats, then a semi-final and a final. Trevor Dan was one of the judges. He was the guy who ended up at head of music at Radio 1 in the 90s, and a bunch of people were involved in it at the time.
Wow, that's really great.
And my band entered it, and we won our heat and got to the semi-final, and we ended up winning Best Young Band because we were all 15 and 16. I think I was the oldest at 16. And Ezio's band won the competition.
Right.
So Oh, and and again, going back to the adolescent love of whatever you're doing, I would kind of religiously go to every heat. And the one heat I missed because I had the flu, his band was on. And the singer of the band that I was in was saying, "Oh, this is the best band I've seen so far," and that was Ezio's band. They were
Right.
called Spirit Walk, and it was kind of ended up with this guy who played drums. What's his name? Richard, Richard, someone. He ended up playing with Gary Newman and a bunch of other people. Oh, here he is.
Here he is. Yeah, here
Here
he
he
is.
is. Um,
Connecting.
and so anyway, that was where I saw his band. And then he came afterwards, he came to see my band and we just got talking. And then he would, because
And
he
then you
was
were
that much,
nicked. You
yeah,
were
well,
poached.
because he was that much older, he'd take me to nurses' discos and try and get me laid.
Which you thought was amazing.
Which I would,
Yeah, here he is.
there he is.
It's lovely to see you, Ben. You look fresh-faced, and you should be a TV presenter. You know, you're so handsome, and like your teeth are perfect, and look like you might have brushed them recently. It's great.
Thanks, mate. I appreciate that. Mate, you should go on TV yourself, but like you could be the darker side of that program. You know what I mean?
You're trying to say, Booger. Trying to say.
I think because I was saying that he couldn't get any advertising for like Hello Fresh and Emma mattresses because we'll be talking about Nazis and sex clubs. He kind of thinks that we're a bit,
Nazis and say we're trying to join the Tories. What the fuck's going on with
well,
you?
Ezio, apparently you met and poached Booga at the Cambridge Corn Exchange when he was how old did you say you were, mate? 18?
I was 16.
16.
Yeah, and
And
it was
so the question
I was going through my pedo period. You were 16.
he couldn't
You were like
really
17 or 18. It was
No,
legal.
I
It was legal.
and it was
16, 16 was still legal. I was legal-ish.
I don't
Right.
think it was then for boys.
right.
But anyway,
yeah,
it's got nothing to do with it. This is taking a very dark path. You're right, Ben. What it was, there's a rock band. I met you. He doesn't remember this, but a few months before, there was a rock band competition there, and I'd just moved to Cambridge, and I didn't know anybody, and I'd recently joined like a band put together, and I was in a music shop called the Drum and Guitar Centre, which is near, but has been closed for many years. It was a lovely shop. And he came in massive afro, and I think about 15, 16, and he just he's very charismatic and he's larger than life. And he handed me a leaflet. It says, we're going to be playing the Corn Exchange at a rock competition. I'm in a band called The Uninvited. Here's a thing, come down. I don't think it has any memory. I think on autopilot. And I was going, all right. And sure, yeah. And then the band that we joined entered this competition, and I turned up and we met there. Yeah,
Right.
and I think at the final, because we got presented with awards, didn't we? I won the competition.
You won. We were best young band.
People need to know that I'm considerably older than Booger. See, and my band won the contest, and I won best guitarist. Do you remember?
Yeah,
he won.
You got a guitar. You got a Fernandez.
I got given a
strap.
guitar and a jacket with guitarist, which from Guitarist magazine, which. In those days, there were like 50 bands in this thing, and it was like 1,500 people.
Yeah, he said it was like about
and
50 bands.
And Booger's band won Best Young Band, but you were called something else by then, weren't you? Changed your name.
Discretion. That was the
It was really nice.
Classic, adolescent.
Happy days.
Adolescent band names. You spend 5 months arguing over band names until you all settle on Agnostic Wednesday or terrible. But he was what I really loved about Ezio's thing at the time was it was just really musical. It was kind of that, there were songs, and he was doing the kind of Telecaster tube screamer delay pedal,
which was really unfashionable at the time.
but was now become
This is now what middle-aged
well, it became the Killers pretty much.
Yeah,
if you had
what boomers aspire to now, isn't it?
Yeah. And then so at that point, after that, we kind of hung out. Like I said, he would take me to nurses' discos and do his uttermost best to try and get me laid. Of which I would subvert most of this by being
Oh, listen, I weren't doing much better than you, son. Don't worry. I was a bit
Oh
older.
yeah, right.
I mean, we both went home, didn't we, afterwards?
Yeah, we did. We did stop off at a kebab house very often on those evenings.
I remember once I was working in an office. I was working in the civil service, and my job was to go out and like
Surveyor.
survey property. I was like a survey shops and things. Wow. And we met on Mill Road, which is like Cambridge's kind of bohemian rough road.
Right.
And at 11 in the morning, both in the kebab shop waiting for it to open. Do you remember? It was like
Yeah, Bagito's kebab shop. I was supposed to be.
Which closed over COVID, and I'm like, oh no, Fagito's an institution. I've got old with him.
He had a job, and I was supposed to be at college, and we were both queuing up waiting to get a doner for breakfast. Which kind of, if that doesn't show you where our lives are going. But there was a point where I was at college. I was gigging in various terrible bands and making awful life decisions. And X was this band. He did well with the Spirit Walk, they were called. Like I said, Richard was the drummer. He ended up playing with Gary Newman and a whole bunch of other people.
Right.
Yeah.
It was good.
Kind of things for me came to a head with music, just because I was sick of the shit that I was doing, because it was kind of that. It was all very fashion based. It was all very kind of reactive and nothing to do with music or art or anything like that. It was all.
And there wasn't the thing about the time is there wasn't an acoustic scene. There was like rock gigs, pop gigs, but there wasn't an acoustic scene.
Right.
And so audiences, and the only reason, and and there wasn't like an internet, and there was like, if you wanted to be in a band, you had to look in the Melody Maker, to see like.
Yeah,
and I was getting really fed up of playing other people's songs. I remember the songs we were playing, the band I was in, were like written by the band. So as soon as one member dropped out, it didn't work anymore, never gelled, and you have to start again. It was doing my head in all the time.
Right.
And I wasn't singing. I was so fed up. So I thought I'll go to London and join bands there. And I remember I was on Marylebone Road, and I turned up to this guy's flat who'd put an ad in for a guitarist. And I turned up, and he had 2 Harrier bags of cassette tapes of guitarists had sent him.
Wow.
And then all these people were playing really, really badly. And they didn't have songs. And I'll never forget this tragic day. It was the day of the Hillsborough. I'll never forget. It was an audition I went to in Acton, and there was this band. When I came out of the audition, I heard this terrible, terrible news. But I was in this audition, and there's a whole queue of guitarists and this band that couldn't play. And I thought, what am I doing? So that's when I decided to write songs and just go out on my own. I thought, well, I need to sing. I didn't have an acoustic guitar at that point.
Right.
And Booga's band were playing a pub near here called The Man on the Moon. He was in a band called The Big Blue. I said, can I, I've written 2 or 3 songs.
The most middle class bullshit you could possibly imagine.
They all had like 501s and like.
Yeah, it's just, I stood out like a fucking turd at a patisserie. It was not ideal.
You look great.
But Ezio didn't have an acoustic guitar, so he had to borrow the singer's blue Washburn.
I had a little Tatra Czechoslovakian classical guitar. I paid for 16 quid at Drum and Guitar Center. I paid 16 quid for this, and I'd written a load of songs on it just to talk to you again and all that sort of stuff.
Wow.
And I just got and I hadn't sang and I hadn't played acoustically, and then nowadays I see like people that just whisper, and everybody's listening. Those days that didn't happen. It was like everybody's talking. They expect a band, and I clopped on.
Oh, let me just say. So I'm in the so-called headline act, and it was like a 7-piece band with backing singer, 8-piece backing singer, keyboard. This is that. There, everyone had to look a certain way, and their songs were all very earnest and just fucking terrible, right? So this shabby wreck of a man turns up, borrowing the singer's blue Washburn single cutaway,
and he had an elastic strap. I'll never forget. I let go of it, hit the floor, come back up. It was like a comedy guitar.
And he because Etz had come over to where I'd live and played a couple of songs, and I was going, this is great. And I can still remember the songs. And he came on and he had 4 songs and he made one up on the spot. And of the 4 songs, there was one was Just to Talk to You Again, and then the other one was To Be in England Now That Spring,
I can't remember. Yeah,
Summer's
something like
Here.
that.
Yeah,
Yes,
and
it's called To Be in England. Yeah.
another one called The Big Ragu, like Laverne and Shirley and the Big Ragu.
Wow, you remember that? Yeah.
I know, but what it was without wanting to, because I've been with him so long, I fucking hate him, right? But it was a real kind of Damascene moment where I went, fucking hell, this is songs.
Right.
And personality and music and honesty. It was just this kind of, it was a reflection of, it was the absolute antithesis of what I was part of.
Right.
Because it was, like I said, shambling wreck of a man. It wasn't just about getting the right sounds and looking this way and getting this thing because, you got to get to the chorus in less than 60 seconds and all of that shit that was being chucked at everyone. This was just somebody playing songs and proper songs.
Yeah.
And I kind of checked out after that and then left that band and started just hanging around with him again.
Right.
It was fucking brilliant. It was like I said,
time of my life, really.
And he said, as he said, no one was playing acoustic guitar. This was 1988, 89, and it was before MTV Unplugged and before it was cool. And if you turned up with an acoustic guitar, you were going to wear an Aran sweater, put your finger in your ear, and sing about being, the pirate computer programmer for Milton Keynes. Who's going
we're playing rock clubs because that's what I knew. I knew how to get gigs. I knew people at rock club, and so they had these big, horrible sounding monitors, that thrashed monitors, and you stand there, and you'd have to fight for attention. So that's where, just being loud and having a dynamic, playing hard.
Do you think that had an impact on the way you sing and the way you play stuff?
Yeah,
you're in a bustly bar and you're like, I've got to just make people listen.
Yeah, but it could be in a gig situation, like hostility sometimes. Going, what's this? You're viewed with suspicion. So is this fucking vegetarian with his acoustic guitar? It's like.
Well, it was. I mean, the thing was, it didn't. What we would do, what was happening was, I would hang out with Etz, and he would come over and sometimes play some songs I'd written. His song, hang out, and then he was doing a gig in this little club in Cambridge called Flambards, and I would go and sit in and play a couple of songs.
Yeah.
And then at one night, I just sat in and did the whole set. We never rehearsed. It was just played the whole set. And it
went in and did it.
Yeah, and it just clicked. And then we started just doing gigs. So it was nothing. I mean, the level of disorganization involved is staggering. I mean,
but they always had the philosophy that we never did gigs for free. We never played pubs where people were just there.
Yeah.
Right.
People had to buy a ticket. And so even if it was £2, they had to cross that psychological Rubicon, and then that's the only way we stood a chance of listening. I remember when we used to play Flambards, they never charged for gigs. They started charging. Other bands started charging afterwards because then the venue saw they didn't have to pay the band because we were coming out with money. Do you know what I mean?
Of course.
But then they were telling bands they had to charge. So we were making. I was making quite good because it was in the centre of town. People walk in, they'd all pay a couple of quid.
Well,
and then my friend had,
and then he raised it when the price was raised.
When the other band started charging the same, we raised the price. That's what we did.
It was like, wow, this is like, gas prices are going. It's like, oh no, Liz Truss has just crashed the economy. It was like that. No, £2 to get in.
Yeah,
God, I'm going to have to kill my children.
A city centre like basement bar, always a footfall, and some people would walk off when you found out you had to pay. And then we didn't have nobody do the door. You needed something to the door. And my best friend, I still good friends with him at the time. He was working, Alessandro his name was, and he was working at the Art Cinema. And he was working on the box office. I said, Sandro, I got nobody doing he abandoned the Art Cinema box office to come and do the tickets for us. Of course, he got fired. Wow. I've got him fired about 20 times in his life. He's turned up. He's turned up. But we paid for it because I'm playing the gig and the place is filling up. He's Italian. Alessandro's Italian. Place for the most attractive women you've ever seen. And even in those days, we'd come away normally with a couple £100 from this place. And I'm going, we're rolling down. Wow, our audience is now really attractive. All these fantastic looking women. Finish the gig. I went, Sandra, how much did we make? Oh, look, he's got £12. What are you doing? He says, yeah, but I couldn't say no. Look, how can I not let her in? What about the audience? Oh, I was full by then.
So like doing that actually just built the audience then for you, didn't it? It was like
Yeah.
that
Yeah, and then I was, yeah, and then I
just
packed my job in.
just gigging and eating shit, really. And we did do the odd. We did do the odd. We did things like the Opera Tarapta in Covent Garden, and
I mean, you couldn't afford. Well, we used to get paid. You couldn't afford to park there now.
yeah,
wow, yeah.
So this is in Covent Garden because I packed my job in and I went down Monday morning and I packed the job in the. I was good. I'd be set. Right now, I'd be fucking laughing. I'd have a pension. I'd be bigger. But I had like 2 gigs in the diary when I packed my job in.
Wow.
And then I went and got I thought, all right, we got to play London, right? We're young, we're new, we're fresh. We got to be in London. So the only contact I had time out. I went and bought time out from newsagents, and everything that looked a bit like a venue, I phoned up and like sent them a message. And I got 3 or 4 gigs the first day. One of which was the Hackney Empire. Do you remember?
yeah.
Was the new act of the year. We got to the final.
It was the pub next door to the Hackney Empire.
Yeah, the auditions were at the pub next door.
And it was like the tryouts to get into the heat, and got into the heat. We got to the final.
Kept winning because they were so unfunny. Everybody was so unfunny. We'd come on, play a few songs, and we'd get the biggest applause, and we'd win
and have a laugh as well because you've made
and we got to the final, and the guy says, "Listen, this is a comedy award, prestigious comedy award, new act of the year. I mean, it's like," he said, "You can't win it, but we'll have you on last, so you play. You're at the final, we get some exposure, and then we'll add up the scores for the others." I went, "That's fair." And well, I've got so many stories just from that experience. I'll never forget. I was in the dressing room, and there's a big. He's still quite young. He's got a massive afro. We're in Hackney.
So
there's a room.
I'm like 19, and the dressing room was
like a doctor's waiting room. There's all armchairs going around the walls, you know, and every chair had a comedian. I'm sitting there, and this guy really bitterly looked at me and goes, "You shouldn't be here, really. You're not a comedian." I'm going, charmed, I'm sure, right? I'm sitting there thinking, and then he says, "Oh, sorry, I didn't mean it like that." I'm sitting thinking, I've got "See you next Tuesday" flashing in neon at the back of my head, right? And then he comes up with a bargain bucket and his afro. He gets a chair, drags it to the middle of the room, starts eating Kentucky Fried Chicken, and he looks at me and goes, "We got a right bunch of comedians here." Funniest thing anybody said all night.
And the fucking silence was, apart from him chortling, the silence was deafening. Because they were just all angst-ridden, looking at a wall.
One woman had, I remember she was talking about using a vagina as storage and getting shelves, but I was thinking, well, that's not funny. And
there was a naked trapeze act, wasn't there, as well?
His G-spot's too far up his rectum. And then we went on between an erotic trapeze act
and the judges,
and an act called Elvis's Cock, which was my favourite act.
Elvis's Cock. Yeah.
There was a guy dressed in a suit, and there's a guy dressed as Elvis outfit next to him, and the whole act for 5 minutes was, "Who wants to see Elvis's cock?" "Hey, what's Elvis's cock?" And for 5 minutes he'd wind him up, and then go, "Elvis, show me cock."
And who would have guessed that act plays slightly lower than us? Judges' points.
Oh dear.
That's ridiculous. That's what
it was. We entered into this world.
We did everything.
We did.
Wow. That's amazing. That's amazing.
But as that said, we would approach it because we were in bands. We were in rock bands.
Yeah.
And it wouldn't be the kind of, Aaron Sweater, finger in the ear, sitting on stools, singing about. It'd be like, "Right, you cunts, listen to this."
Have some of this.
I'd break. How many guitars did I break just trying to frighten people?
It was just to intimidate the other bands, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Really? So we went one place and he had all this gear. And I know we was in Chelmsford, the Army and Navy in Chelmsford. Walk in, there's a guy who's got like a big stereo rack system, amps everywhere, bracket guitars, and he walks on. He's got like it's like a pink pointy Kramer
acoustic, because that's all I could afford.
Most horrible looking,
dreadful,
sounding, evil
Do you know where
horrible
that? Do you know where
instrument.
that guitar has been for the last 20 years?
I dread to think.
Uh, underneath the stairs in my mum's house, and I dare let it see daylight for fear that the planet is in as much shit as it is without seeing that unleashed evil upon the planet.
But Fender released the Acoustasonic, which is about the same thing. Anyway, we walk in, and Booger walks in, and he's got this in his hand. And this guitarist with all this equipment, flashing LEDs behind him, and all said, at Cape Canaveral, goes to Booger, "Nice guitar, mate," to Booger. And Booger goes, "Yeah, bounces one," and just throws it across the stage.
Yeah.
I was like, "Oh God, why does it have to be so hooligan? It's supposed to be acoustic."
Yeah, well, that was our approach, and I think it well, it was who we are. There was no. This is the thing: is that the fact that we've got this far is just staggering because we never
got very far. We just
well,
did.
no,
Like,
but I mean,
that,
even,
my son
to
is
this level, even to this level, that we're not, you know.
did that like behavior and stuff? Did that like get you a reputation with the other venues and other, or journalists or anything like that? Did they love it? What did they think?
No, it was purely for our own purposes. We never did it at the right moment for that. Our own amusement. If you're in such bizarre situations, half the time you just want to like do something just to amuse yourselves and make it fun, really.
Yeah. That must, but like your audience over the years, they've obviously responded to that. Like
by the time we built this audience, we'd kind of like had the rough edges a bit. We're talking about really early days. We had the rough edges smoothed off a bit.
So at what point did did a manager or whatever get involved? Because were you signed, Ezio? Were you signed to, it was EMI first?
No, Arista,
right. So at what point did they like get in and you had to obviously tone?
Well, there was a period of about 3 months where every gig we'd go to, and we were playing the Hammersmith Apollo, supporting people regularly, and Shepherd's Empire supporting people regularly. We'd built up with venues a reputation of like the borderline. We were like the in-house support band half the time. We were always going up and down to London all the time. And but we were on something called the tip sheet, which all the record companies had, was a list of bands to look out for. And there was a 2-3 month period where every gig we did, there'd be 3 or 4 A&R people, 3 or 4. And in those days, it was a big financial commitment to sign somebody.
Yeah.
But they were signing people. And we'd got to a good stage. And then a friend of ours who worked at the BMI put a big gig on at Dingwalls. It was like a business industry gig. And
Marcella Detroit,
and every A&R man, basically every A&R man in London was at this gig because there was a few acts on that were on this tip sheet. And I remember being really, really nervous, thinking, if we don't get signed here, where do we go with this? We'll fuck off. We'll just sit. That's it, the end of it. And we were playing the gig. By this time, we'd only just got this new manager who was mad, called Laurie J, who'd been Billy Ocean's manager for 18 years. And he was it's like East End Jewish, but very funny. I mean, very, very funny.
But we're talking about days.
Only a few days, yeah. He was very lucky.
We'd met him.
We'd built the whole thing up.
Yeah.
Wow.
And we were, because it's funny, because at that point, sorry to come back, but at that point, I'd kind of resigned myself to going, we're not going to get a deal, but I'm having such a good life. And we were earning money doing what we were doing. And I couldn't really give a shit because it was just fucking great at that point. I couldn't care about, if we had Muff Winwood, do you remember he came to something and said that we just weren't commercial enough. And
loads of them said, it's great, I don't know what to do with it. Well,
yeah, there's lots of that. And I just thought, fuck it, we'll just exist.
Because we've never really tried to follow a fashion or trend or, we're still playing the same now as we did then, really.
Yeah. Sorry, carry on. So, we've got this room full of people.
Yeah, they're all there. And there was Fergal Sharkey was there. There was all kinds. It was an A&R man for Polydor at the time. And they were all at the bar talking. All of them at the back of the room. And I thought, well, this is dead. Nobody cares. Just play. And I kind of we just played. And then we come off stage and our manager walks in and he says, I was sitting with Nigel Grange and Chris Hill, who signed some of my favourite acts in the past. they'd formed a company, Ensign Records. They had the hit with Sinead O'Connor. They developed the Waterboys.
Wow.
You
Yeah.
know, all that sort of stuff, which is in the ballpark, really.
Mm.
And they then became head of A&R at Arista Records. And at a time when Simon Cowell was the head of the pop division, wasn't he? At Arista?
Yeah.
Imagine him being delighted with us. But anyway, he, we come on stage and Laurie says, I shook hands with Arista on the second song. That's it. And that's when we had a record deal.
Wow. Wow.
And then it was kind of at the same time as Terence Donovan.
Well, he'd been already to a few gigs.
Yeah, and
He'd been already to a few gigs.
He was working at Arista at the time and he was
their assistant. He was their scout.
And he was kind of going, you got to be involved in this. You got to be involved in this.
Wow. And so going from that point, then, you know, with the labels and all that stuff, did that then, you know, take you off on some other bigger journey to what you'd already had, or it was
a different side of things, and then all of a sudden you feel like you fought so hard to get this mythical thing that you weren't really sure you were going to get, couldn't quite believe you were going to get. But rather than being like having, you know, just fighting for everything, all of a sudden you felt like you had something to lose and you could mess it up, and then a different pressure came in. And then you were with people that were trying to fit you into a pigeonhole. They tend to see you in they don't get the whole thing. They kind of like see you in a two-dimensional way. That, right, we've got a big guy, we've got a small guy, we've got a guy that does the guy that, what are we going to do? Oh, that would be good, you know.
Yeah.
And never really been very good at following this kind of advice. So it's probably the best thing. I didn't understand half the stuff they were trying to do, you know. So yeah, so they were tried to put us through the pop machine a little bit, which didn't really work for us.
Yeah, we did do. I'll never forget doing a. There was a.
I was at a massive.
It was like on Nickelodeon or something. Nickelodeon, there was a couple of girls talking in a room full of children, and we turn up. We've been, you know, because that was a point when record companies were spending money, usually our money that we hadn't earned yet, but they were spending it. And so they say, oh, you got this early start on Nickelodeon at building this TV show. So we'll put you up in a hotel the night before. And me and him, we just go, well, fair enough. Let's go to the bar. So we always end up doing some dumb shit, getting smashed, doing whatever. And we turn up at this thing, kids' TV show, and we're sweating combination of lager, kebab meat, and sambuca. And they get us playing in this room full of kids, and you just see the kids terrifying. Like you hear the scratching.
I've seen pictures recently. I've been going through throwing stuff out. I've seen pictures of us then. I look terrible. I'm absolutely terrible.
Well, I mean,
absolutely shocking.
We were just naive, and we just thought that. Well, I felt certainly I was naive, and it was you had this machine, and you kind of thought, what if any advice I was going to give to anyone is all that you've done is just got past one level.
Yeah.
And now this is a different one. And this is just a whole different set of pressures, a whole different set. And these people, it's like parenting, you know, when you think that your parents know everything. And then after a while you go, actually, they're fucking winging it. Yeah. And I shouldn't be, my cot shouldn't have been in the same room as they're making crystal meth.
It's just growing up, though, isn't it? It's like,
yeah, but that was the process of it. But we got in. I mean, we got into trouble, but I was getting told off all the fucking time because because I can't help but subvert everything by just trying to find a fucking laugh in it.
Yeah.
You know, and everything becomes so. And there was a lot of.
And you had to, because there was a lot of boring things they'd ask you to do, you know, with getting to, you know, they'd fly us to Munich to go to a department store and mime in a record shop to nobody and then fly us home again.
Right.
You know, like in stores and then going around in a van in Germany to all these like department stores where they had a branch of World of Music, which was their like HMV. And you go there and they'd like, I never forget, they'd assemble a stage. The manager would have invariably forgotten we would come in. So you'd be rushing around getting snacks and a buffet together. Then they'd have a PA system. And I'll never forget, it's supposed to be playing. And then be like, I sort of remember one old lady, and she was just comparing these two laundry baskets, and she couldn't make her mind up which one she was going to buy. And I'm in the corner with an acoustic guitar, and I thought, well, this is glamorous, isn't it? This is what I was dreaming of. You know,
So
And then there
getting
was the time
signed
in.
wasn't, wasn't like quite, it wasn't everything that you thought it was, basically getting signed. And, did it have an impact on the songs as well? How you wrote the songs?
no,
Did they
I
ever
tell you
tell
what,
you that you've got to,
the first lot were very organic and very happen. And then all of a sudden, I'd never felt pressure about it. I wrote for the love of it. And then all of a sudden, that you just delivered an album. They're all suddenly go, right, for the next one, we need this. And they're already putting pressure on you just to write the next one straight
yeah,
away.
right.
And you're like, oh, well. And then I'm starting to think, oh. And then I felt pressure from that point of view. And I don't think that's a good thing. I think you should write when it's right.
And it feels right. Yeah. I think a lot of artists now, feel that as well, when they get signed and things like that. There's, even to get signed
But I
straight
don't
off.
even know what it's for now. What do they actually do now? There's nobody who sells records. What is this? I mean, what even is this?
Yeah.
What do you do with it? I've
Yeah.
got probably an album, 2 albums worth of songs backed up, and I don't know what to do with them because do I really want to do another album and freaking get it all coherent and all them, and then to just watch it die in a vine and stuck on some algorithm somewhere? Do I really want to do that? I don't know. Or should I just play the songs live? And if you want to, you got to buy a ticket. If you want to know what the new songs are, you got to buy a ticket.
Yeah. Do you think that the live scene then is the thing that's been like a constant, like that's the thing that but
that's the thing. That's the reason they couldn't kill us. We've been dropped loads of times, signed loads of times. And the fact that we can go out and gig is the fact that my son said it best. He says, you've managed to sustain your career at a level where you could be permanently miserable for decades. So you're absolutely right. So just enough not to give up.
Yeah.
But the thing is it's not what we do is what we do. There's not it kind of seems really fundamental when you discuss music. So he sings and plays guitar, the other one plays guitar, and this one who sings and plays guitar writes these songs. It's just got melodies and choruses and structure, and the lyrics are brilliant, and the melodies are strong and great, and they're able to work on it. And that seems just so fundamental, but doesn't apply to so many things involved in music.
Yeah,
because there isn't a song; it's a sound, and a sound that dates.
Yeah,
and there isn't a lyrical. There's nothing you can. Everything is spelt out. A lot of modern music, without sounding like an old fuck, it just sounds like nursery rhymes.
Yeah.
And
I know you mean by that.
Yeah, and it's just this kind of repetitive nature of things. And it's, are you creating art, or do you just want to get on an advert? If you get on the next Volvo electric car ad, then you've actually made some money for the year.
Yeah. And it's actually, and you're right. I mean, for some, it differs for different people, doesn't it? But I mean, for some people, they literally will get the one advert and then that's it. And then the career's gone then. And then they've got to go and look for something else then or something. But the difference, I think, with you guys is that, as you've said, you've managed to sustain your live touring, like your show, since you were 18, from what I can gather. Like you're still doing it now, aren't you?
Yeah, but also the songs, they'll be written in a certain way that I don't, and the arrangement's been so basic that I don't know if they've aged in the same way as a lot of styles of music have. Do you know what I mean? Because they were never in fashion. Do you know what I mean? They were never trendy.
Right.
So by the same token, they've never been untrendy. They're kind of and a bit too difficult to classify. And I don't know.
How do you approach songwriting? What do you have a way of doing it, or does it just kind of happen, or what's your?
Sometimes I'm in a mood that will make me play the guitar in a certain way, and that will then make me feel something, and then that'll bring a memory or a feeling up and words up, and then I'll just start singing that. And sometimes I start with the words and the idea of the words, and then just go like that.
Yeah.
There isn't a system. If there was a system where you could sit down and today,
Yeah.
It certainly isn't. When I've looked for amusement on the internet, like songwriting YouTube, things. It's they start showing people the
Here's how to
circular
write a
fifths.
song.
If
Yeah.
the circular fifths and then the relative minor and then and then they start calling chords by numbers. I said, what the fuck is that?
Yeah.
I think a good
I just start talking numbers. You're going, oh, you went up to the 13th. Yeah. Yeah, you did. I did it. I didn't know.
I think a really good metaphor for Ezio's writing was very much the same way that he tried to join this Zoom conversation. Can't find the adapter, needs the update. The update gets installed. It's half an hour late, and yet somehow he's still here and entertaining. And it's just kind of like there's something that just comes. It's not that. It's not the kind of.
You say nice things sometimes.
No, but it's true.
Rarely,
it's
sometimes you do.
Yeah, well, you are. Let's face it. 99.9% of the time, you're complete. But for that 0.1%, it's marginal gains. That's how England won the Rugby World Cup, I guess. But no, there's that. It's just that there's nothing calculated.
Yeah,
and it seems to make a world of difference to everything because it's based on nothing more than expression. And if that is, but expression of how you're feeling. If that isn't art, then I don't know what is, because it's
that's really interesting.
And that's something that I think, well, we certainly see it when we play. And I know you probably, I know you're teaching, but something that a curriculum can never do is be creative now.
Yeah. Exactly. No, well, it can't. It can't teach that ever.
Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly.
It can kind of give you the ideas that might take you somewhere, but you have to be
feeling something and
just trying to get something. What you trying to say?
Yeah. Definitely.
It's not everybody's the same, though, are they? Because I'm going to name, like, there's a singer-songwriter from Cambridge. He's moved to Glasgow called Ben Hughes, and I love his songs. I really like them.
Yeah.
And I tried once co-writing with him. And I remember he's so skillful that he can put himself in imaginary situations. So the guy's feeling like this about this and about that. And I'm going, and he can make it sound like that.
Wow.
And I can't do that. It has to be me that's feeling it. And I have to feel it on my skin before I can actually articulate it. It's like, I don't.
That's
why he can write for other people. I can't really.
But that's a process, though. It's like acting, where you get Daniel Day-Lewis. Daniel Day-Lewis in his if he was to become one of the Rice Krispie dolls, whatever the little character will have to spend a year being Crackle before he can do it, and then somebody else will just rock up and be Pop, and it's just there's a process. But the end to it is that, as a listener, you're going, wow, that really spoke to me. That's all that, that's the only difference is the process. And, he's a massive pain in the ass, but fuck me, he can write a good song. I agree. If I could learn how to write, I'd put it on his tombstone just after.
Do you have like a particular favorite album, or a particular album that like conjures really good memories for you, or something like that? Do you have a particular collection of songs or anything that you're particularly proud of in your catalog, or does it not work like that for you?
It doesn't really work like that. I mean, each one is like a little time capsule, from you were feeling at that point in time. Sometimes like Black Boots on Latin Feet, the songs come from my favorite period. That bit where we were out and about and there was no pressure,
right?
And everything was fun and possible. And the songs from that come from that. But the actual recording of it was a painful time for me because I'd lost my voice, and my granddad died, and all this sort of thing. So I have mixed feelings when I think about the making of the record.
Right.
But so it's an uneasy listen for me. But it's everybody's favorite one. the album after that, Diesel Vanilla, I was very proud because there was pressure to come up with a second album. And I think I really liked the songs that I actually came up with.
Yeah, it's a fantastic album.
And then the next one was Higher. And it was just after my mum died. I spent 9 months in a hospital in Italy next to my mum. She was dying. And so a lot of it, and then after she died, we made that album. A lot of the songs have got that pain in them. So,
Right.
so that, and then after that, there was the making of Mr. Spoons, which was the first time really that I got more involved in the actual nuts and bolts of making a record, and it was like a transitional kind of thing. And so every one is slightly different.
Right. Interesting.
So a different, as a different feeling, but the songs are interchangeable. I can mix them up however, and their live shows like that. We never have a set list. And
I was just about to say you don't do set lists, do you?
No, and that's because I hated school and I hated work.
Yeah.
And if I have a list, it's like a list of chores that you have to get through, and that's not fun for me.
Yeah.
I like to know, and then plus live, I really like to gauge. I like it to be spontaneous, and sometimes you fall flat on your face. And sometimes when it works, it's actually better because you're adapting to the room. So I've like right now, these blocks need to be taken up, and right now they need to go back down again. And you can get a song from your repertoire to fit the situation.
Huh? Yeah, I've seen that in your shows, definitely, where you're reading the room.
Yeah, but you learn to do that.
Yeah.
Some people do it naturally, but I think we've done that many gigs. It comes in, I've learned it. I'm a slow learner, but I get there. And for instance, at the beginning, when the rooms got loud, I used to get louder and shout, and it became an arms race between me and the audience. And now that they've paid and they're a little bit older, I've completely changed technique by watching other singer-songwriters, how they do it. I go quiet, and then they all go quiet to hear what you're doing, and then you draw them in.
Yeah.
Might sound obvious, but it wasn't to me at first.
No, and it's not obvious, I don't think, for loads of performers. And not just the dynamics in the show, but the dynamics actually that are in the songs. I mean, there are times in your songs where you're barely playing at all. You're sort of quiet, and you can hear a pin drop, and then like you say, you play your sort of your hits kind of thing, and then
that comes from that a bit again. That comes from the way things have changed, because the PAs now, you can do that, but it becomes from fighting for it. And all of a sudden, having the luxury of people listening, you milk it because you didn't have that before.
Yeah.
Whereas now there's a whole generations of people that record themselves in their house. And to sound nice, like let's say if I'm on this microphone, let's say this is not so much this one, but when people go up to them, it sounds lovely, right? And that's how they write the song. Because if you're in a normal, horrible acoustic room, if you sing loud, it starts phasing off the walls and you get a horrible sound. So their recording sounds shit. So everybody's whispering, and they draw you in, and it's a lovely, warm feeling. But you go to watch a gig and all the songs are like that. It's as dull as ditchwood because there's no dynamic.
Yeah.
It's all right. To use the analogy of film and theatre, it's all right to be like Steve McQueen in a studio, or just moving an eyebrow and act like that. But on stage, sometimes you have to be Brian Blessed. Do you know what I mean? You have to really project and be loud to make it work. And then you have got dynamic live that you haven't got on a record, and you can be quiet and can be really loud. So you have to exploit that.
Yeah.
And I see a whole bunch of people. And for about 10 years, 11 years, I started a thing in Cambridge called the Songsmith Sessions, which was like a fun thing to do. It's like an open mic for songs, for songwriters. And you get loads of people now that come that just sound brilliant. They got 3 songs that sound brilliant. I'm thinking, what did they say? What was that? What was that? Was that a song? What was he actually saying?
Yeah.
It's like Snapchat for
rare songs. Rare songs.
Yeah.
Somebody that comes in with a song, I go, oh, that's touched me. It's rare.
Yeah. Well, I find that every one of your songs where I'm listening, there's a real clear storytelling element, like you've just said before. Like you're sort of you're in the mindset of like, I'm revisiting a feeling or I'm revisiting a memory, and you're
also, I think words are really
story. But it's really clear in your songs, and you don't necessarily hear that in other music,
There's the other thing that I'm very influenced by. I've been very influenced by Italian music. And there was a real singer-songwriter thing in the 70s. and the words there are 50% of the song. So in my head, it's 50% of the song.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the British tradition is to have the music's like 80% of the song, if not 90% of the song, and then for modern music, the English language is absolutely fantastic for this. So it sounds good, not necessarily even saying anything. Whereas I remember when I was first, used to go back as a teenager to Italy and I'd listen to what they had in the charts. I was shocked by how fresh and original the words sounded, because we were still stuck in the language of the 1950s. Yeah, baby. I mean, who says that?
Yeah.
And they were like already talking about real sex and real things, and they were just actually, they didn't know what English people were singing about. They just liked the sound, and they put their their lyrics to it.
Right.
And so I kind of, and it was very poetic, actually, the metaphors and everything. And I had these sensibilities, so I tried to bring that into when I write songs with the same, tried to make sure, don't say anything. Don't just talk gibberish for the sake of having a singing thing happening.
Yeah.
If you're going to make a noise, it has to mean something. And that was always the philosophy, really.
Yeah, yeah. And it's really apparent in like all your catalog, and especially in your live show and your performance and everything, it's like really
live, you can really touch people more because you can perform it, and you can put the story over a bit more, I think.
Well, you always do this. You always, you tend to, when you're doing the live shows between the songs, you can you have that ability to convey in like a funny way as well. What this song is about. Here's why I wrote it. Here's where
I don't think I explained anything.
It's brilliant. Yeah, yeah, and it draws people in. Yeah.
Well, it's often he'll talk a load of bollocks between songs just to kind of feels
awkward
break. About
it's a rest, isn't it?
It's like
it's having a breathe. It's like a boxer, isn't it? He has to have a breather now and again. He might half a round, he might just like dance about a bit without having actually boxing. So that's what I'm doing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Just kind of,
You don't have to go on. I'm sorry, Ben.
It's all right. It's all right, mate. It's okay.
Can I do some poetry?
Go on, Booga. Yeah, why not? Go on.
This is a poem called, if you're stuck on time, it's called 1 million. 1.
2. That's the dumb jolly thing.
3. Okay, yeah, sorry, carry on, Ben.
I'll turn you off, mate.
You'll never turn me off, big boy.
What I was going to say was, do you have any, tips, tricks, advice, anything like that is for, people who were in your position, who are in that position now, they're 15, 16, they've got songs, they want to get out there, they want to crack on. What would be your advice to them, to have a career in music? And
be true to yourself. Don't let people persuade you, because when you're a performer, you're vulnerable. You don't realize how good you are. And then there'll be people giving you advice what to do. And if it doesn't feel right, don't do it. Trust your gut instincts. Have integrity. And because it's one thing to fail on your own terms, but it's much worse failing because you followed somebody who didn't know what they were talking about's advice.
Yeah.
So, and my advice would be, have a significant other in your life who's got a proper job.
Yeah, that's always good advice. Good advice.
And doesn't mind you coming home at 3 a.m, crashing through the house and talking about how that new Seymour Duncan pickup sounds better than the other Seymour Duncan pickup that you're never going to spend the rest of the week playing noisily through.
And also, do what you have to do to get by. And even if you're not gay, 40 quid's 40 quid.
And most supermarkets do a thing late at night where you can get stuff really cheap, but you got to eat it quick. But it's true, though. You just follow your own path.
Yeah,
integrity. Just have integrity. Do the best music you possibly can, and don't listen to anybody else.
Yeah,
make your own fuck ups.
Yeah, definitely.
Look at us.
Yeah, we succeed. Before I went on this diet, I was 9 stone. But now I'm a healthy 4,000 kilograms just by adding butter to everything. There you go.
Thank you so much, guys, for doing this. I really, really appreciate
Oh, it's always fun
That's all
seeing
right.
you and talking to you anyway, Ben.
Yeah.
Speak to you soon, man.
Anyway, you look well. Married
Take
life
care.
suits you. Take it easy,
Great.
Ben. I'm going to
Thank
go
you,
as well
mate.
at this point.
Really appreciate this, guys. Thank you very much.
No
Oh,
problem.
no, it's always a pleasure to see you. Anytime you want anything, son, call
Thank
Booger.
you, mate. I appreciate
Right.
it. Yeah,
Yeah,
cheers.
call me and then
Call
I'll
Booger. Delete my number and call Booger. If you want
Yeah.
anything, all right.
see you later.
See you. Bye.